Hi, Helena.
Hello, Adam.
And hi to all of our listeners. Welcome to High Notes and Anecdotes. We kick off each one of our episodes with a little introduction introducing ourselves and what the episode is about. So, who am I? My name is Adam Miller. I'm a former opera singer turned producer, writer and director. I've produced shows and directed shows all over the world, and I've had the great pleasure of knowing you for a fair while, Helena. Tell us about yourself.
I'd love to, because I'm a soprano and that's what we do. My name is Helena Dix. I'm an opera singer, soprano, if you hadn't noticed. I travel all around the globe singing at some pretty cool places. I'm a mentor, a teacher, a lover of high notes, and I love to laugh.
So, what's this episode about? In this episode, we look at how we prepare musically for roles. And Helena, you talk us through your process there. Of course, my big input into this episode is how best to climb down from trees while singing. If that sounds interesting, listen on. We're back. We're back again, and let's assume that the audience is listening and that they've returned.
My goodness,
they've listened to us and they've gone, yeah, we'll take some more of that. Fools. This episode, I wanted to have a bit of a chat about preparation for roles, especially because you've just finished this fabulous and hugely well-received season of Melbourne Opera's Puccini Fest. And you were singing dual roles of Musetta in La Bohème and then Suor Angelica in Suor Angelica. Today, I'd love to have that conversation about how you prepare for that, because, you know, we've all done it. We've all jumped into roles where you're dovetailing and you're singing different styles. And again, I know you're working in Puccini there, but they're dramatically different roles, like incredibly different roles. And I'd love to hear about what you do to bring them into the same world, bring them into your voice, but also to separate them. I think that's an interesting thing that a lot of working singers, probably more so in Germany, where you're absolutely and utterly dovetailing roles. You know, you'll be singing Rossini Figaro one night and then you're singing Mozart Figaro the next night, and you're having to jump between the two.
Sure.
So for you, musically, how did you musically approach Musetta and Suor Angelica?
Well, I think that in general, you don't get this very often. Like, it's not very often in my career that I'm literally one night doing Musetta. I mean, it's a bit crazy. And the other night, the Angelica. Yeah. You know, theatre space, maybe it becomes something of the future that we have to do things like this. I don't know. But anyway, so that in itself was already a challenge for me. I mean, I have done contracts like in New York at the Metropolitan Opera where I've done contracts back to back. So I have performed and prepared roles that I'm literally, start the performance of one and I'm rehearsing for another. So I have been in the situation before.
And I've been in similar ones where I've been covering one role within a show and performing the other role. Yeah. So I might be performing a Figaro, but I'm covering a Bartolo, or vice versa, or those kinds of things. And again, very, very different. But from your perspective, jumping into those,
I think that the basic principle of preparing any role still stays the same for me. So, but I'm a nerd, right? So I'm a nerd about the way that I prepare a role vocally to start with. A lot of singers just pick up a score, they do the translation, they sing it through, they learn it. For me, it's old school approach. So I do a very technical approach to every role that I do. And what I mean by that is things as nerdy as a breathing map. So every role that I prepare, every phrase that I sing that's difficult. So normal phrases are just in the body as they are, but phrases that are particularly difficult to me personally, for whatever reason, I'll prepare a map of how the breath is taken. So for instance, do I take it low? Do I take it high? How long before do I take it? While I'm singing this particular phrase, do I pulse on the breath? Do I lock it? Do I stretch it? Do I, all the different aspects of how I deem support and physicality in the body. And I have little nerdy kind of ways that I mark it on my score.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then that way, to me, when things are a little more difficult than I would usually like them to be, I know that the fact that I'm repeating them every time in the same way, mind you, to get to that way takes time. So I could work on a page that I find particularly difficult in an aria for days.
Okay.
Literally, I could do 2 bars in an hour.
Does this drive your husband crazy?
Oh yeah, that's why I do it while he's at work.
Yeah,
never when he's at home. I remember once actually I was learning Mozart Recit, and that's even worse because it's just repetitive.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even muscle memory stuff; it's just repeating. And at one point, he's like, you just cannot do this around me anymore. You have to just go out, just go and sit in the middle of the park and do it, and they'll arrest you. That's fine, you know.
I've got to say, my family, when I'm learning a role, knows the role as well as me.
Really?
Like, my kids will come away singing all of my repertoire.
Sure.
And often better than I do it, which is why I moved into being a producer more than a singer.
Did I say that out loud? So I guess it comes from
so your breathing map.
Yeah,
I'm still
breathing
back at
map.
this, which is amazing because, again, when I approached breathing across phrases, and again, professional career as an opera singer, my breathing map was a little comma to go, and that's where I breathe, and that's where I breathe. So it's wild to me to think that you approach each breath differently. Like I might occasionally go, big breath, but that depth and that thought makes perfect sense because I've seen multiple shows of yours where you can see the preparation that's gone on. So talk to me about, I'm really, really, really curious about this breathing map. So you've got, what types of breath do you mark in?
The type of breath is the start.
Yep.
So for instance, if I've got a lot of time, it's like, you know, the normal low, deep breath. But when do I start it? Because sometimes if you start it 2 seconds before, it's more beneficial than 4 seconds. And sometimes taking it 4 seconds and elongating it slowly is better for where it sits in the pitch at the start of the start of the phrase.
Yeah.
That's really nerdy, but
Yeah, no, I'm with you totally.
Yes.
Our listeners, if you're not singers, we've lost them entirely.
They've gone now.
They've gone.
They're like,
they were doing the dishes. Now they've blocked it.
Now they've gone off to enjoy the rest of their day without us. So the breathing map starts with something as simple as the kind of breath, when it happens, how low it is, whether the breath has been released from the previous phrase. I can't believe I'm actually doing the actions with my stomach here and no one can see it except for you. So, you know, for instance, if I've had a really long phrase before, I like to then let the body, you know, like release the breath, or I call it splat the breath.
Yeah,
right?
no, that was
like a splat
technique.
Breath. Exactly.
Yep, no,
like,
I grew up with that.
Splat it down, take it in efficiently again, but you don't always have time for that. Or maybe you do have time for that, but maybe by doing the splat action, it actually takes away from more energy than what you need for the next breath. So that they're all the things on the initial breath that I play around with.
Yep.
I play around with, you know, energy versus outcome of what you want out of the phrase you've just finished and also the phrase that you're about to do. And then for me, support, it's a very big word and that everyone has a very different opinion on. I don't know why I got very posh all of a sudden then. So how I control the airflow while I'm singing. So a lot of singers just breathe, they lock, they sing. That's what they do. That's not my basis technique. So I have to control the airflow the whole time that I'm singing. So if I'm singing a phrase, I might do things like pulse, like little pulses in the support, meaning that I'm causing the air to travel a little faster sometimes. And
what does that do? Like, what's the audience going to hear when you do that?
You'll hear a better connected phrase, a phrase that stays on the vibrations better depending on where the pitch is.
Okay.
So if my high notes especially, they require less air, so slimmer air, but faster air. So the air needs to travel quicker, but there needs to be less of it. And so that in itself is like, how do you find that in the physicality of what you're doing? And so
all this is part of your breath map.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So it might be like a big stretch with the air. So the air might come up slowly and surely. If I'm creating a nice legato, I might be doing coloratura. Coloratura can't lock with the breath. If the breath locks during coloratura, you come off the vibration of the sound and you can't go as quick. So in order to be like da 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 da, you know, you can't just go and then get.
Oh, that's what I was doing wrong.
That's what you were doing wrong. You can do that, but it's not so efficient. So it's about. I always say to my students as well, it's like a little hamster on a running wheel. The hamster kind of stops all of a sudden. It's like when you lock the breath or you do nothing. It's like, what do you actually expect the air to do? It'll do nothing, and then in turn, it won't be helpful vocally. And so then in turn, vocally, you end up, you know, stressing in different places, or your jaw gets tight or your tongue gets tight because your body's not supporting it. So, and you see it in singers all the time. You see in singers that don't know what they're doing, like in the side of their neck going, because there's not enough support going on.
Yeah.
So I map out not only the initial breath, but I map out the journey of my air and my support during every phrase. Now, that's not for the whole phrase in every phrase of an opera, but I do it on phrases that don't come naturally to me. So things that naturally I would do it in, without a problem, I don't think about it because it's going to come naturally. But I train the body in particularly difficult phrases. And I also train the body to do that in really emotional places in the opera as well. Because I know that once I get into the rehearsal room, that extra layer of grief or emotion or supreme anger or whatever it is going to in turn change the physicality slightly of what I'm doing. So if I've got a baseline, so nerdy, but if I've got a baseline where my body's doing the same thing every time, then I can rely on my voice and I can rely on my body. I remember I did this crazy production of Attila in Germany, which with Konvichny as the director, and it was just it was all kinds of cray-cray. And she comes out at the beginning with Santo di Patria, like all like powerful, and most productions she comes out and she's in armor and she stands still and she sings this incredibly crazy high notes, etc. In my production, I was like a child who did karate, and I came out with my karate girls, and we all had to do high kicks and ninja pulses, and I had to somehow sing this gorgeous line without my voice going like this because I was kicking and punching.
Yeah.
So I trained myself. I didn't know that the production was going to be like that.
It's what we call das Konzept.
Das Konzept,
yes.
So good. Because I'd done that work at home, it meant that I could then do these crazy movements that I was asked to do, literally like karate kicks in the air, and I had piggy tails, and I was doing the hayas and all that kind of thing. And I had to jump around a little bit. And so when I first learned that I had to do this, I went back to my apartment, literally doing star jumps, jumping to try to see if my voice could stay independent of what I was doing in the physicality. And because I'd done that groundwork, it made life a lot easier to build that in.
This is where Taylor Swift got it. This is what Taylor Swift did. She would sing all of her Eras tour. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Right there.
I didn't. I'm lying. But she clearly channels me when she does it.
That's it, because she would do all of the Eras tour on a treadmill because she's dancing and running around the whole time. So she had to have that sensation of being physically exhausted but able to do it. I had a similar one. I did a production of The Barber of Seville, and I had to come out for that famous, la 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 la, on a bike, and I had to ride a bicycle all over the stage.
Oh wow!
And it was fantastic, but a really difficult thing to coordinate while you're trying to do a particular rhythm and not make your feet do the same rhythm on the pedals.
Right.
And similar one, again, another production of Barbara Seville. I did a few of them in my time, where I started in a tree, and this was out in a park, and I had to try to get down. And the very first time that I did it, I went, "Oh, it'll be great! I'm going to start in the tree." and exactly, and I went, and I got part of the way through it, and I went, I cannot get down during this aria without going blah, blah, blah,
unless it's a break. Yeah,
that's it. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to wait for this. And then I went back and I trained to be able to move, climb out of a tree while singing it because it looks cooler.
Just to be clear, did you then almost get arrested by several park rangers because you were just found in trees?
Just random trees. That's it. Yes.
Just trying to get down out of them while singing.
Excuse. Whenever they'd say, "What are you doing in that tree, sir?" I'd be like, "Oh, I'm practicing for an opera." And they never believed me. I don't know what that's about.
No one blinked.
That's about.
I also had two other things that I can think of. One is when in the same production, in the last scene, it was like we got older. The character, so we went from being kids with the little karate moves and the like young girl being a warrior thing to the idea of being old now and regretful of the choices that we'd made. So this was in the same opera. And for the first time
I can relate to that.
I had to use a wheelchair.
Oh my God.
Now in Germany, almost every third production, they use wheelchairs. I don't know why. It's just this weird kind of thing that they always have wheelchairs. I'd never been in one before. And the blokes who were house singers were like, "Oh, it's no problem." They were big muscly men. Okay, let's talk reality here. I am plump. I have a big bum, big boobs. I have short arms and short legs. This does not go well for being quick in a wheelchair. So the first time I got in one at rehearsals, and I'm seeing this huge finale with these top soaring B flats, and I'm like, because
oh my God.
first of all, I couldn't. I'm very uncoordinated. Like really, like that was the first thing. Second of all, we had to cover the entirety of the stage in a particular time, so we were timed basically.
Oh wow.
Like you have to get from here and you have to ride the wheelchair, like drive the wheelchair around, with the arms and everything, and sweep around in a big circle and reach this point by this time. And I was like, right. The first time we did it, I got, I don't know, halfway. And I was like, first of all, I was puffed. But second of all, I can't go any quicker because my arms don't reach the bottom of where the wheels are, and the feet had those, those little like flip,
the little
flippy things that you rest your feet on. So I'm resting my feet, and it's all with my upper body, but I'd never done anything like that before. The director was getting really frustrated with me, and it really upset me because, usually to a point I can kind of at least find my own way about doing something.
Yeah.
There was no finding my own way about this. So then I had the best idea ever, because at the end of the day, even though it wasn't a comedy, we were slightly playing for the
laugh.
Yeah, a little bit, especially at this point, because we were all with like hilarious grey wigs, and we had to get Viagra out of the thing for the guys and everything. Like it was kind of a play on things. So that played to my benefit, and I had this amazing idea, and I said to the assistant director, at the moment, you're laughing at me, not with me. And that upsets me. Okay. And the audience, I don't mind if the audience laughs at the fact that the little plump girl with, the big boobs and the big asses can't like wheel around the wheel. Like it's funny. Okay. But I want you to be laughing with me. So I need to turn that into a physicality. I need to turn that into something. And I think that's a really interesting point, because I've watched artists who are great actors, poor actors. I've watched people who are bigger, smaller, everything. And when artists can't do something that the director wants them to do, a lot of the time there's a really bad feeling in the room. And I've always, my whole life, tried to turn that into a positivity. So saying, okay, guys, let's look at the fact that I really can't do this. But let's look at options. Yeah. I'm not scared to talk about it. I'm not scared to talk about the fact that I'm not great at it. Yeah. And I say that to artists all the time. I'm like, don't be scared to talk about the fact that, don't try and be something you're not.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, directors, conductors, everybody wants to get the best performance out of you for the audience. And the audience wants you to give the best performance.
Correct.
So,
and they're going to feel that if you're not.
Yeah.
So I had the ingenious idea to flip up the foot pedals and start running at the same time. So it's this bit where, and I make that decision. So I go, and I like show the audience my muscles as if to say, oh yeah, I'm old, but I've taken this pill and now I'm going to have all this energy. And then I literally flip the pedals up so you can see that I'm doing it like on purpose. And then I run with my feet like on the ground, which gives me the extra speed, which gets me round. And then the director loved it so much that he got me round. So I made it round the big circle in time, singing these top B flats. And then he said, I want you to crash into the side as if you've gone too fast. And then it became like a feature of the finale. And then we all kind of enjoyed it together rather than me feel awkward about that physicality. And also the other one was, you and I did the same show. It was Inflator Mouse.
Oh, the breakdancing.
Yeah, and also do you remember the gym ball that Rosalinda had to body surf on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Inflator Mouse, the director had us in the aria on the final note, body surf over this ball and then end up on our backs on the other side. And again, I was double cast, if you remember, and I wasn't the main cast, but I ended up having to go on for a bit of that tour. And he actually said to me, like quite condescendingly, he said, you'll never be, like, you'll look ridiculous doing this. So I went to the gym and I said to them, right, I need a ball and can you give me a private room, and I need to work out how to do this in a way that's successful for me physically. It doesn't affect what I'm doing vocally, but still looks like on that slightly amusing front, but amusing that we're all in it together.
Yeah.
And not just everyone going, oh, that's awkward.
Yes.
Yeah. So, definitely, I think that's why that extra layer of preparation helps in the technical at home, because then whatever I'm asked to do, whether it be something tricky physically, whether it be something so emotional that I feel it emotionally and I get a bit choked up, but if you can always rely on that, I think it's a really good start.
That's it. So we start with that idea of the breath map, and then there's some of that physical training work that you do.
Yeah.
I reckon in our next episode, let's have that conversation about the emotional work that you have to do, especially, again, Musetta versus Suor Angelica, that emotional and dramatic preparation that you do. Because I know, again, I've had to do lots of it ourselves. We've worked with some amazing directors and some amazing drama coaches on lots of work that we've had to put together. So, yeah, I think next episode, let's have a chat about that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. And again, for our dear listeners at home, you may or may not be listening, but if you are listening,
saying that. I want them there now. I'm committed now.
We need it now.
Yeah.
We need it. But yeah, join us in our next episode, and we're going to have that conversation about how we put these roles together dramatically, because it's big, and it's also something that people tend not to really focus on in opera. Well, audiences often don't think that it gets focused on, but I think we focus a lot.
Absolutely.
Goodbye, and we'll see you next time.